Hi, Mom and Dad. I want to thank you guys so much for letting your children be here with us this weekend at ACYC. My name's Tony Vicinda. I'm one of the presenters from this weekend, and I wanted to take just a moment to talk to you about how you can continue this journey that your young people have been on this weekend back in your family, and how you can help them unpack the experience and make the most out of ACYC, because you aren't just your child's primary catechist, which maybe you've heard, maybe you haven't, but you're actually the person who is going to have the most influence in the long-term life of faith that your child has. You're going to be the primary influence, whether they like it, whether you like it, in their growth and their relationship with Christ. And so I just wanted to give you a couple things to think about, maybe share with them as they come off this experience, and a couple questions that you can ask them. And the great thing is they're actually the same set of questions. All weekend long, we're breaking open the theme of To the Heights, right? And this is a quote by Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati. And it's easy to think about it as maybe climbing a mountain, right? Getting high, getting closer to God. But actually, the phrase that Frassati used probably comes from actually the way that the Italian consecration happens, which is actually like when the priest elevates the host, he would say, "To the heights our heart." And so what we really want to understand is that to the heights is an invitation to actually orient ourselves to God, to orient ourselves to Him, not just to climb a mountain or to take some sort of action, but to turn our whole lives towards Him. And we do that by responding very simply to the gospel calling. And I know, like, I'm from Texas, I know in the Deep South, the gospel calling can sound like a very non-Catholic thing, but it's a deep part of our identity. So I want you to think about a couple things and talk with your young people about kind of these four big things. The first one is this: has there been a time where you've encountered God's love? And that may seem like a very basic, simple question, but has there been a time where you've encountered God's love, where you knew that God loved you, that He cared for you, and that He wanted you to be happy, right? That He wanted you to be blessed? All right, so I want you to think about that, and I want you to also be able to share that with your young person. Here's a time when I knew I was loved by God, and ask them if they've experienced a time when they've been loved by God, all right? This one can be a little bit harder, especially as a parent. It requires you to be vulnerable, but you being vulnerable is going to help open up your child's ability to do it. The second question is this, right? Where is a time that relationship has been hurt or broken? So we would talk about this as sin, but there's also a lot of other things that can hurt or stress relationships. When's a time where it was maybe hard for you to have faith, where it's hard for you to believe in God, when something got in the way? And you want to pick something that's appropriate to share with your child, but if you want them to share back with you, that's going to be the place you want to start. So asking them, what makes it hard for you to be Catholic? What challenges you in your relationship with God? Here's something that's challenged me. That's point number two. That's question number two. The third one, specifically, how did Christ heal that hurt? So this could be the sacrament of reconciliation. It could be a relationship with another person. It could be through prayer. It may have taken time. It may be something you're still working through, but the reality is Christ is seeking to redeem you. He's seeking to bring you back in a relationship to Him. And He's seeking to bring your child into a deeper relationship with Him also, too. So focusing specifically on how Christ is moving in your life and in their life is the third part of helping them break open the gospel. The last part of that is, how do you respond to that invitation? How do you respond to Christ's action? So we can think about this very simply as if you sinned and you've gone to reconciliation, like you have the act of penance, but the actual commitment you make is actually to go forth and try to sin no more, right? And so I don't want to reduce it to just a moral aspect, but the actual response that we have to God's redeeming love for us is incredibly important. As I mentioned at the very beginning, it's actually about orienting our whole life to God. This response to the gospel is about orienting our whole life to Him. And so I want you to take a moment and think, right now in your life, how are you trying to orient yourself to the heights, to God? How is your heart responding not only to the love He's given you, to the way that He's redeemed the breaks and the stress in your relationship, but how are you orienting yourself to continually living that out in your life? And I want you to ask your child, what are ways they plan on doing that moving forward? Now, this can seem one of two ways. It can seem like a very big conversation, or it can seem like a very small conversation. And the reality is, in classic Catholic tradition, it's both and. It's the biggest conversation we have as church, but it's also the smallest and simplest one. It's just called the kerygma, the initial gospel proclamation. So breaking that open with your young people on a regular basis, where are you experiencing God's love? Where are things hurting right now? How are things hard for you? How is Christ responding to that and seeking to heal you? And then how are you responding to that? That's a conversation we want to consistently break open. And coming off of this weekend, something I want you to be able to be prepared to share about your experiences with and invite them to share with you also too. We're praying for you. God bless. Thank you so much for your supporting your children, for having them here this weekend, and for all the work that you do as their primary parent.